Okay, true confession time. I am breaking up with my beloved religion. I've been obsessed with religion since I was a young teenager. My parents were completely non-religious. In fact, they were anti-religious Jews who really felt that religion was responsible for so much suffering in this world. And so I tried my hardest, y'all, I really did, to do what my parents felt was right and stay as far away as I could. But it didn't work. Every religion I encountered was like a beacon, and I was like a moth to the flame, and I went rushing into the fire, and it was all consuming for many years. Well, I wouldn't say every religion. I had a kind of naturally built in aversion to any fundamentalist versions of religion, evangelical spaces, and any kind of born again Christian spaces, the ones that were really hardcore, this is what you believe, and gay people are bad, and whatever other judgments they might make. But the juicier, more mystical traditions were incredibly attractive to me. You know, I had a mystical soul, and I think many of you know what I'm talking about. It's this deep core spiritual hunger, and the only flavors we have available are the religious ones to try to meet that soul need that we have, right? And so I took initiation and I practiced in all of the different spiritual spaces. Maybe not so much Christianity until later in life when I began translating the Spanish mystics. We'll put a bookmark in that. But definitely the so-called Eastern traditions. At a very young age, I developed a relationship with an Indian holy man, a holy man from India, Neem Karoli Baba, who I'm still quite fond of and considered to be my guru throughout my life. I developed a very robust Buddhist meditation practice in the Theravadan tradition, Vipassana type of practice, but I also studied Zen, and I also had a deep affinity, and still do, with Tibetan Buddhism, particularly the female deities like Tara. And Sufism, the mystical branch of Islam. I experienced Sufi dancing, now called the Dances of Universal Peace, at the Lama Foundation, which is really one of the main places where these dances were developed in the 60s and 70s. And Sufi poetry, the mystical poetry of Rumi and Lala and some of the Rabia, some of the other great Sufi mystics. So all of these spiritual traditions felt so deep to me and met the longing of my soul. And they have changed. Those relationships have changed for me. Like any long marriage or relationship, except you might consider this more polyamorous since I had about 5 of them. We grow and we change and we move in different directions. And I always had a rebellious streak, which is why I have not accepted the invitation for ordination in any of these traditions to which I have been so deeply devoted and in which I've been so completely, passionately involved. But I've never been willing to take that step of calling myself one of them, a Christian or a Sufi, a Hindu or a Buddhist. I do call myself a Jew because that's my cultural roots, but I have a huge divergence with a lot of the way Judaism has played out on the world stage, especially lately. But culturally, genetically, I do honor my ancestral heritage in my body. But other than that, I've never been able to claim membership in one space to the exclusion of all the others. But it's different now. There's this In my 60s, and with this book, Ordinary Mysticism, Your Life is Sacred Ground, I am publicly deconstructing religion and walking away from some of my more formal ties to the religious traditions. And I suspect that if you're even listening to this right now, you might be in the same mood. Maybe you grew up in a formal religious space and you've known for quite some time that it's limiting, that religion, as my friend Willow says, has built a fence around spirituality, around that mystical essence that was the spark that created these beautiful traditions. And then the institution tries to protect that spark, and it ends up smothering it. And so we're looking for ways to step outside of those gates and have a direct encounter with the spirit that is the reason we were drawn there to begin with. And so for me, this breakup with religion isn't heartbreaking at all. It's natural, it's organic, and it's incredibly liberating. I no longer have to wear the robes, metaphorically or literally, of these different religious spaces in order to affirm my intimacy with the divine. I am finding it, I'm recognizing it more and more in the everyday realities, and not just the beautiful ones, not just the first flowers of spring, y'all, but also in the heartbreak of the evening news, in a teenager in the family who is addicted to hardcore drugs, in the struggle for money and survival, in the misunderstandings between dear friends. All of these spaces are opportunities to cultivate intimacy with the divine, to say again and again that all that matters is love. And that the self-judgmental, critical, perfectionistic purification instructions we received from the religions are bullshit. They are designed to keep us away from the living heart of divine love. That is our true legacy. That is our birthright. But it's deep. The conditioning is fierce. The minute we do something that seems to be out of alignment with the thou shalts and the thou shalt nots, we feel like we've betrayed our fundamental spiritual responsibilities. And so the space I'm inviting you into is not an easy space. It's not for the faint of heart. It's an ambiguous landscape. It's a sacred reality that makes room for paradox, for the world is broken and the world is exquisitely made. That you yourself are going to screw it up. Every day you're going to make mistakes according to the patriarchal constructs that we've all inherited anyway. And every day you are going to meet reality with love again and again. You're going to uncover whatever is obstructing the source of childlike wonder in your life. If to be a mystic means to have a direct experience of the divine, of the sacred, of the numinous, of love, then you are a mystic. And each day is an opportunity to wake up to your birthright of wonder, of direct communion. You know, when I was very young, I experienced a lot of death in my life. It started with the death of my brother when I was 7 and he was 10. He died of a brain tumor. And then when I was 14, my first love, Philip, died in a gun accident. And after that, there were just many. I've just had one of those incarnations, lots of death. And each one is kind of peeled back whatever layers had grown around my heart and granted me this direct, naked access to the divine. I don't know why it works that way, why the fire of grief is so potent in burning down whatever constructs or ideas or concepts or habits or judgments have grown between my heart and my God. And I think they have for a lot of us. You're probably going, yeah, me too. And so, but they also drove me, these losses drove me into the arms of God again and again and again. So after Philip died when I was 14, I moved up to the Lama Foundation, which is the interspiritual community in the mountains of New Mexico, just a few miles from my family home in hippie land of Taos in the early 1970s. And I went to Lama to immerse myself in all of the spiritual practices and the scriptures and the ways of approaching the life of the soul. That's all I wanted. Lama Foundation was the place, by the way, where Ram Dass created Be Here Now with the Lama community in the late 60s. So it was a place that was steeped in many different wisdom traditions. And at that same time, I was in a play about the life of Mirabai, my namesake. I was not yet Mirabai. I was still Paula Starr. And I was 14. Philip had just died. We created, the kids in the community had created this musical play about the life of Mirabai based on a comic book that one of our teachers brought back from India. All of our teachers were like people who went to India to be with Neem Karoli Baba, or to Japan to study Zen, or to trek in Nepal. Or it was like that in those days. And so we wrote the play, we wrote the script, we composed the songs, although we also wove in traditional Hindu kirtan chants. And it was this ecstatic kind of experience. Oh, I forgot to mention, I was cast as Mirabai. But at the same time, I was heartbroken because Philip had just died. And there was this rawness in my soul, in my 14-year-old adolescent hormone-driven body. I learned to sing for the first time and to dance in the South Asian traditional dance forms. And I played the part of Mirabai, who was this wild young mystic in love, madly in love with Krishna, God of love. And she went against all of the expectations of her family and her status and her station in life. She was an upper class Hindu girl who was expected to marry into a royal family, which she did, but she refused to consummate her marriage with her much older, boring, princely, noble husband. And it just drove his family crazy, and they tried to kill her. And that's what the play is about. It's about all the different ways that her husband's family tried to kill her, and none of it worked. All of these miraculous, magical things happened to prevent her from dying. And finally, she was able to extricate herself, to get away, to walk out the door and throw off her sandals and her sari and live as a very simple beggar mystic, singing and dancing for God for the rest of her life. And she drew followers from all of the different religions and traditions because her heart was free of allegiance to any one way. And so that was a source of great inspiration to me throughout my life. Mirabai, singing and dancing for Krishna, the God of love. But even that had to go. In fact, numerous times in my life, I went through periods that I called my firing Krishna phase, what John of the Cross, the great Spanish mystic who I've had the privilege of translating, calls the dark night of the soul. For the Christian mystic, John of the Cross, the dark night of the soul isn't about just having a difficult time, navigating a painful breakup, the ending of a marriage, or a serious health diagnosis, or the loss of a beloved pet, or any of the ways that our worlds get rocked by circumstances. The dark night of the soul is about radical unknowing. It's about those times when the fire sweeps into the landscape of our life and burns it to the ground, and everything we thought we believed makes no sense anymore. This, according to the mystics, is good news, because this is when we become spiritually naked and we're able to have a direct relationship with the divine, with the transcendent, with the numinous, unmediated by external authorities. That's a big part of this breakup. I'm breaking up with the intermediaries, with the priests and the rabbis and the roshis who claim to have what we need in order to get to the divine. We have to pass through those churchy gates if we want to get what our soul is longing for. Now, not all ordained clergy people are like this. So please, those of you who are spiritual directors, who are ministers and shamans, you are keepers of the jewels, and I honor you. We need you. What I'm speaking of is that those of us who think that that's the only way we can have intimacy with the divine, we are recognizing in greater and greater numbers that true spiritual experience lies in the messy middle of our ordinary everyday lives. That's where the sacred is. And that's why I'm saying I don't want to hear about what it is to be spiritual, what it is to be pious and holy, what I need to believe in order to get the love that my soul most longs for. I'm deconstructing that shit, and I'm doing it publicly. I'm breaking up with religion, and I'm claiming it, and I'm dancing in the blood, as Rumi says, the blood of my own unraveling. And it feels wonderful. And if I could give you permission, if I could, as Willow says, write you a permission slip to walk out of that building and into the open field of your own wild heart, that's what I want to do. I want you to join me in this party. And let's bring the mystics of all the world's religions with us. I mean, all of the mystics that I love, St. Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross, St. Francis and Clare of Assisi, Rabia, Lala, all of the great mystics of all the traditions. They were all renegades, like me, like you. They all were saying no to that which constricts and limits our own wild heart, that which puts a block between us and love itself. They were stripping it off. They were lighting it on fire. And so those practices I love, the meditations, the chants, the prayers, the scriptures, all of these things, they're coming with me. I'm bringing the best of them, and I'm weaving them into this liberated life of ordinary mysticism. And I'm leaving behind the rules and the regulations and the constructs that tell us how and how not to have intimacy with our beloved. Okay. I think that's it. Thanks so much for witnessing this. This is a big moment for me. Long time coming.